Hey everyone, it's Darius here for Status Report 2. So, I now have a tentative project title, and it's called Code Switching with Your Provider Experiences of Black Diaspora AFAB Sexual and Gender Minorities when Interacting with Medical Providers or in the Shared Decision Making Process. I haven't decided which one yet, and AFAB means assigned female at birth. Um, so I'll just give you an update. I've changed mine a little bit, the scope of my project, and kind of narrowed the group down a little bit to help me better focus my research questions and decide on variables. What I've come up with in doing the lit review is that it changed those things for me, and I just kind of kept getting in a hole of research. So now a brief intro to my lit review and what I've been finding is that, and this is kind of what brought me to changing my title and modifying my research questions. So my during the lit review, I found that so what I'm studying is shared decision making process between LGBTQ patients. Well, really, they're the how intersectional identity. So I get gender. Sexual orientation, race specifically, or ethno-racial background. So that's ethnicity and race, and how that affects the shared decision making process between medical providers and patients, specifically patients who are sexual minorities and gender minorities. And I use that term instead of LGBTQ because it's more encompassing, and especially if we're talking about an intersectional approach. It's better because there are some black identified people that we may associate their behaviors with part of the LGBTQ community, but they don't choose to identify as part of the LGBTQ community. So there's that. So what I found in my lit review is that I've only been able to find one study specifically around my topic, and I've been looking at research around MSM communities in HIV and PrEP prevention. So uh, I'm finding a lot of articles about Black and Latino men who have sex with men. That's what MSM means, and specifically around HIV treatment, care, some around shared decision making. Um, and around PrEP, which is also related to HIV. So PrEP is a pill that you take to prevent yourself from contracting HIV. So I'm finding a lot of information there. Another place that I'm finding information about African American community and shared decision making processes around diabetes. Um, what I'm not finding is information specific to, um, or what I've been finding in the research is that Black women aren't studied often. So people that are assigned female at birth. That was so I'm taking Black women and I guess trans and non-binary people to use for my like those are my the folks that I'd be studying those intersectional identities based off of what I'm finding in the lit review, and that's how my title changed and how I decided that I'd narrow my focus because of what I wasn't finding. And that seems to be the group that they're coming up with a lot of healthcare disparities, but there's no research on them. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think that it's basically those intersections of identity and like the historical implications of that. So, like, for instance, the history of reproductive um, research within Black women communities and the history of infant mortality. So then, what are the implications for an LGBTQ identified person that's assigned female at birth when they're accessing healthcare, and how does that affect their shared decision making? Because already there's their there's the identity as being woman as one thing, right? And then there's that other layer of being a Black woman, or being someone that um, is non-binary and Black and a sexual or gender minority. So that's what I've been finding, and my lit review on those I would say are the main points would be that there's a lack of research in this area. It's mostly qualitative research, or actually predominantly qualitative, when you're looking at the intersections of the gender identity and sexual orientation, along with racial or ethno-racial identity, socioeconomic status, educational status. Um, those are the things that have been coming up, and um, my conclusion is that there needs to be more, or a brief summary of what I believe my conclusion is going to be, is that we need more research within this community, more quantitative research, and that we should use that research to better inform providers as to what is necessary in improving the informed decision making process. So, my study is going to influence, or I'd like to influence the individual's insight, um, and given their intersectional identity. So, looking at the stories of the experiences of the group of patients, so that group of AFAB, Black diaspora people, that are sexual and gender minorities, and the providers. So I changed the purpose statement for my project, which I think will be helpful in understanding my review right now. So the purpose of my research will be to explore the impact of intersectional identities of AFAB, Black diaspora patients who are sexual gender minorities, that has on the shared decision making process with medical providers. The question that I'm using to kind of guide my lit review is: do assigned female at birth LGBTQ people, actually, I apologize, do assigned female at birth sexual and gender minorities that are Black diaspora people report experience of bias from medical providers? And I want to kind of explore, does this exist? Are the experiences different if the provider is POC and not a sexual minority, or if they are? So if the provider has a shared identity versus if they don't. Um, and then my research questions now are: is there provider bias when engaging in the shared decision making process with LGBTQ assigned female at birth Black diaspora people? And then how does perceived bias of medical providers impact the shared decision making process between medical providers and patients? So that's where I'm at with my lit review and a brief conclusion. I'd really love to see and hear where you all are at, and to know if has doing the lit review kind of changed things for you. What are your struggles that you're having? And yeah, and I always look forward to feedback. Sorry this was so long. My lit review process has been pretty long and a little daunting at times, because it's really been difficult to find what I'm looking for. So I'm having to kind of piece together a bunch of things. But looking forward to seeing your videos.